and welcome to CIO News on our Voice of CIO series. I'm Khushbu Soni, your host for the broadcast and a contributing editor at CIO News, where we write about business strategy and boardroom issues for technology leaders. This is a recorded session and will be available on our website, which is cionews.co.in, and our CIO News LinkedIn handle. Let me dive in introducing our guest for today. He's Manoj Madhavan, the Chief Information Officer at Blue Dart Express. Manoj Madhavan has 25 years of rich experience. Manoj has been a visionary business and technology leader. He has worked for several brands such as Abbott, L'Oreal, Pepsi, Marico, and many more. Manoj's key area of expertise are digitalization and transformation projects, data analytics, big data, data warehousing, business intelligence, design thinking, innovation, knowledge management, go-to-market IT solutions, etc. It's a pleasure to have you, Manoj, on our Voice of CIO series.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me here.
Awesome. Without further ado, we can start with our quick interview question. So my first question to you is, what can be the role of digital transformation in the logistics and courier industry, and how has digitization changed and helped in this industry?
I think if you really look at it, this digital transformation thing is kind of not just limited to the logistics industries, but this is something which is a need of the hour, especially after the lockdowns that we have seen in the COVID era. It's about, say, a year and a half. I think a lot of organizations were on this journey, but the speed of implementation or speed of change was relatively much slower. I think with the whole thing around work from home and being able to travel, not being able to have face-to-face meetings, this has kind of changed the whole game. So I would call that as a game changer or a catalyst to push this whole digitization agenda in the industry overall. Right. But if you look at logistics, I think some of the key elements are based around how can you actually move shipments from one place to another without really having to have that kind of interactions physically like we used to have in the past before. True. So it becomes extremely important to see how do you exchange data between your customers and yourself. How do you exchange data between yourself and your consignee? How do they get real-time information? And if they have to give you some instructions regarding the schedule of deliveries and things like that, how do you kind of digitize it, bring it online, make sure that there is real-time information exchange happening between all these entities? I mean, that's what makes it a smoother transition. And it can start the journey right from the beginning where you really want to go and book a shipment to be, couriered to some other destination, maybe international, maybe within India. So how do you make it a seamless experience without the customer actually having to go through a lot of painful work or having to carry it, the shipment from their residence or their office to a retail location or a counter and then do it where you are actually exposed to more risk. So how do we manage this? And I think, and then like I said, the whole track and trace, and at the end point, how is it received by the customer, whether it is securitized, are we trying to drive contactless deliveries? So I think those kind of things are the key elements from a customer perspective.
Right.
But if you look at it internally, it's largely to do with driving productivities, managing the efficiencies without having an impact on service quality. I think these are some of the key parameters around which the whole transformation agenda needs to be built around, or the roadmap has to kind of keep these things in mind.
Right. Very rightly, that you put across the common trends. What we're seeing is, like you mentioned, is one, collaboration being the key. Giving a digital customer experience is another key to digital transformation journey. And so collaboration in the current times with the employees, digital customer experience is another trend. So what are the common areas of challenge that you see to drive this journey in the organization and in the current times specifically, and how do you plan to overcome them?
I think a lot of these challenges that I would have faced, if not for this kind of a lockdown kind of a scenario, is more from a cultural aspect where there is a lot of resistance to change.
Yeah.
You know, the inertia is so high when things are working normally. You don't want to change them, and then trying to make that changes, which does not just kind of impact the internal customers,
Yeah.
but a lot of times we have to work very closely with our external customers too, because that's when the whole ecosystem will kind of survive and be digitized. So whether it is exchange of information, are they okay to be on API integrations with us? Are they okay to move on the EDI platforms for real-time integration of data vis-a-vis sending Excel files over mails and stuff like that?
Right.
Again, when a lot of industries have their different SOPs when it comes to handling of shipments and how these shipments are handed over at the endpoints. So
Yeah.
working with them, especially like I said during the whole contactless thing, was in fact we actually turned it around very fast, because I think the problem was understood by all of us, whether it was the consignee, like I said, whether it was our customers, whether it was us.
Yeah.
So it was a very short time. Something in the normal case which would have taken around 30 days could be turned around in 3 days, and it was still well accepted by the industry. I think that these realizations over a period of last 18 months is very high. A lot of organizations are open to change.
Right.
So now what is happening is more than an outside in perspective, it's an inside out push, which is also coming in from the organizations, which I think is a great thing for the technology folks in the organizations, which are especially user industries, because
Yeah.
now instead of they pushing for a change in tech or a landscape change, it's actually the business which is forcing them to do it. So I
Right.
think it's a golden era for the tech guys.
True. Very true. Very true. My next question is, around blockchain. How can blockchain enhance transparency for consumers by allowing them to, view the entire journey taken by a product before it reaches to them? So, any thoughts on that?
I think blockchain kind of becomes the key here. See, some of these terminologies keep coming up over a period of time, but
Yeah.
if you really look at the logistics industry, the airway bill numbers were the blockchain identity if you try and connect it with current blockchain technologies. Okay. It is the airway bill number with which you can trace a shipment, whether you are a person who is sending the shipment or if you're receiving the shipment, or you are the person who is in a logistics space trying to see the track and trace of the shipment.
Right.
Okay, but I mean that was very rudimentary blockchain if you want to really call it. But as the organizations start trusting each other more with data, can
Yeah.
we set up something like you have a credit rating for every consumer, right?
Right.
Irrespective of whichever banks want to check for it, they
Yeah.
can actually see that. Now, this comes because there is a trusted environment within the banking industry, and the data being collated in one place and the credit ratings being calculated and shown.
Right.
A similar thing of trust can be built between the logistics players and the e-commerce players and the other industry to create maybe ratings. So, for example, if you really want to buy something on EMI from any of those e-commerce websites,
Yeah.
they just don't have to look at their own data, but they can look at data collated from across the board and then see, okay, maybe I can give this particular customer credit up to say 10,000 rupees,
Right.
just a case in point, or maybe less. Based on that, they can actually mark their sales. Secondly, we will be also able to identify areas where there is a lot of pilferage of shipments. There could be cases where stealing happens. So
Yeah.
now, if this kind of information on a trusted blockchain tech is shared between the industry players, it actually benefits everybody. I mean, it's a way of looking at how you can build a trust and then start playing around, using really monetizing that data from a quality of service perspective. And effectively, I mean, you will actually also be able to serve better. You will know what time slots are preferable for a customer. Maybe you're doing it, you are maybe carrying it for the first time, but somebody else would have done it 10 times.
Right.
So based on their acceptance of shipments, if I go between 6 to 7, I have a 90% chance that the shipment gets delivered in the first attempt. So there are a lot of such things which can be built around if you are able to create a trusted environment using blockchain technology, specifically from a shipment movement perspective.
Right, right. And Manoj, how can the next question is around IoT. I mean, how can IoT technology be used to track assets between the warehouse and vendor location for logistics industry?
Well, I mean, some part of it is already used by a lot of these logistics players, including us. The way we track our bags which contain shipments, the way we track the trucks, the movement of the trucks, whether they are reaching the hubs at the right time, how much time they are spending at the hubs, whether they are leaving the hubs at the right time. It
Right,
is also used to build intimations to the next point, right? From if
right,
it is moving from point A to B, the moment it leaves A, there is a notification which goes to point B saying that this particular truck with these shipments will be reaching you by, say, another 4 hours time, for example.
right,
And if there is any delay in that, that again gets intimated. So the person knows when and how to be ready based on the kind of load that is. This is just a small example. This is something which is used, across the board by all the industries. But
right,
to maybe kind of get in deeper, you could use the whole GPS tech for high value shipments where you can actually, or RFID, for example, which you can actually tag a particular shipment and then trace it all through the journey, right? I mean, you
right,
may not be able to do it to all for all kinds of shipments, but especially in the high value category, you can do it. Temperature control logistics is something where IoT is used big time to see that the shipment is maintained at the right temperature and moved across the whole journey. So there
right,
are many such things. Drones can be used for warehouse, management, how it can be secure, what stocks are kept in what places. So there are multiple solutions which need to be built. But I think it's largely how you converge some of these technologies and co-create solutions that can really help you drive the whole track and trace, like you said.
right, right. Um, so another question, Manoj, is around the robotic technology. I mean, I would want to refer to one of the initiatives recently taken by Domino's by deploying a robotic car and van, which was basically manufactured and provided by the US-based robotics company. So that the whole use case was to deliver pizzas in the US, through a robotic car and a van. How far do you think is India, from implementing this kind of technology, even, for example, for a logistics or a courier industry? And or if at all you think robotic technology can be a great use in this industry.
Well, definitely yes. I mean, robotics can be a game changer, especially in the warehousing space,
Yeah,
because there are different kinds of shipments, different sizes, different weights, and the way our people handle it. It's also that you can reduce the load on people if we can handle it through robotics, right?
right,
Uh, Deploy intelligent robots across the board, and you'll actually start seeing how they can really make a difference out there on the shop floor. I mean, if you look at pizza delivery, for example, the way you said,
yeah,
uh, if you have read the news a couple of weeks ago, we have actually worked very closely with the WHO and Telangana government, and we are actually doing drone delivery, setting up the whole thing for doing drone delivery, vaccines through drones. And this is something which I think a lot of other players are also trying and doing. But like I said, we were one of the first movers there. Tomorrow, these kind of solutions could be used for maybe moving human organs between two hospitals on an urgent basis, because
right,
actually you don't have to face traffic and things like that. But a lot of things would kind of be based on how the regulatory environment allows it and kind of changes it.
right,
These are technologies which have shown us positive signs. They are kind of technologies which we can start looking at, and how and when they can be used, deployed. I think it's about a matter of time when before something like this happens. It's something similar to what you see about autonomous vehicles.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same story. It's about who is ready to start making those kind of investments, which are, because some of these are kind of slightly ahead of the curve when it comes to India and
Correct.
the kind of warehousing that we do.
Yeah.
Compared to, for example, if you look at some of our DHL warehouses globally, they're really huge. I mean, this kind of tech is already deployed there and
Right.
it's working, whether it's augmented reality based WMS solutions, whether it is robots being deployed, uh, and things like that. So, like I said, I mean, these are solutions which it's just time bound. I mean, it'll just happen. I mean, it's a matter of few years once commercially they become far more viable, and you'll see smaller organizations also stepping up to take that. I think it's right now it's about investment, it's about ROI,
Correct.
but tech tends to get cheaper as the days go forward.
Right.
This is bound to happen. Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. And that brings actually to my last question, Manoj. What potential do ML and AI have to play, to improve business functions in specific in the logistics industry?
Massive. I mean, like I said, it's something which is eventually going to be embedded so deeply into the systems that any organization would build.
Yeah.
Because fundamentally, if you have seen, tech projects historically have been to create applications which are idiot proof, right? We build all kinds of validations to ensure that mistakes are not made and things move smoothly based on hard and fast rules. And there is no fuzzy logic in how things would kind of happen in systems.
Right.
But with machine learning and AI, we can actually convert a lot of these systems into smart systems, which means lesser and lesser manual interventions or corrections to be done within the systems or as part of your process. What is most important is, this is where things like design thinking and customer journey mappings come into play. When you actually build out a journey map, you identify points where you can actually interject or intervene based on machine learning algorithms or AI, or
Yeah.
even analytics for that matter. I mean, you can actually create use cases at every step of the process
Yeah.
and then start building it bits and pieces. What actually happens then is, when you bundle all of this together, then it becomes a huge value add to the business. If you take individual use cases, then you will have to really run after the big ones.
Yeah.
But something like this can help you overlay a lot of these smaller use cases, which can be turned around faster. If you believe that something is not working, you can drop it, change it, bring in a new one, and that doesn't cost you so much of money. We know that analysts and data science experts today are extremely costly resources, if you want to call it. But my belief is, if we are able to break it down into such pieces and do it, we should be able to gain much more in terms of value than what we would spend, because it can cut across the board, right? Process automation, or what we call as RPA in today's world, it can bring in a lot of productivity. You look at machine learning based algorithms, it will tell you how to move so you make less mistakes.
Right.
Uh, Systems will be telling you the fastest way to move shipments between your network. So again, time saved, fuel saved, cost saved,
Yeah.
and huge benefits. It's just a matter of time, like I said, whether it's healthcare industry, whether it's FMCG, whether it's logistics, you will see a lot more intervention of AI coming into each one of these elements within the process as smaller things, and as it overlays, I think it'll be a great sigma of it should be a really big one.
Right. Awesome. I know I said that was the last, but there's one more question. If you would want to share a few of your best practices for other CIOs in the industry, any do's and don'ts, also keeping the current situation in mind, any best practices that you would want to suggest that has helped? Since you come from various FMCG companies as well.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the things which I just did mention is it's extremely important to understand who your customer is.
Yeah.
Whether internal, whether external. I think it's about understanding what is a pain point there, what we are trying to solve. A lot of times what happens is the problem statement is not very clearly defined. Correct. That's why you try building solutions and it really doesn't still solve the problem. It might partly do it. Yeah. Or it might not be an effective solution. You might have something which will push you through for 6 months or 12 months, but then later on it resurfaces in a different way.
Right.
So what is most important is to understand what the real problem is. What is it that the customer has as a pain point and how you can solve it. Secondly, I think building journey maps, I have found it to be extremely useful. I mean, from a long time, whether it was creating the whole B2B digital ecosystems while we were working in Pepsi, or while we were integrating multiple divisions onto common platforms in Abbott. Similarly, here in Blue Dart, when we are trying to build solutions or co-create solutions with our customers, whether it is Amazon, whether it is Flipkart, whether it is SBI Bank, Axis, ICICI, and so many others, Apple, for example, Dell, Lenovo. I mean, we work very closely with a broad-based set of customers who do actually have different kinds of businesses and products. But when we kind of talk to each other, we try and understand what is the real problem to be solved, put out a journey map, understand at what point you need to intervene with a tech solution. Sometimes it's an understanding issue, but most of the times some small tech interventions help you resolve it.
Right.
Again, when we look at AI or analytics, like I said, we need to identify in the process map at what points can I interject and really add value. And all of them may not exactly go and build for an ROI for you,
Yeah.
but maybe some of these use cases help you build the whole total system economics theory, and it fits very nicely into it. And why logistics need to really start looking at some of these. I mean, on one side of it, the other extreme, like I talk about it, could be the SpaceX things being done by and Hyperloop being done by folks like Elon Musk. I mean, that again, you should understand is logistics, but it is interplanetary logistics.
Right.
And we're talking about something which is on ground here on Earth. But yes, Hyperloop, text like Hyperloop can change the way, 3D printing can change the way you do businesses once it gets commercialized. So I think it's very important also to understand in this whole tech wave as to what you can expect coming to you soon, or what might take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and be ready with things which you can kind of build if it is coming. And see, also with businesses, we have to ensure that we don't eat away the profits just by pumping in a lot of tech, because businesses have to survive.
Right.
And it's, I think it's the tech teams which have to make sure that we create those platforms on which these businesses can not just run but really sprint and kind of scale. So the three things, if you need to look at it as specific words, is something which our MD Balfour keeps saying about: simplify, automate, integrate, and scale.
Yeah.
If you kind of follow these steps, I think we can do a lot of work. Also partnering within the organizations. I think that's also something which will start happening very soon, as businesses come out of this pandemic, and there will be a huge rush because businesses have suffered. So there will be a lot of strategic and a lot of disruptive steps that will happen over a period of few months, and we should be ready to face it. I think that's the best message that can go out to tech people.
True, very true. Awesome. I think this has been a great discussion and a great interview. I'm sure a lot of CIOs and our viewers are going to get great insights from our today's session. So if you can share your experience of joining us and participating on an interview like this, just your experience on being on CIO News.
Well, I mean, it's a great platform. What it does is, I think, just like I'm sharing my experiences and views, we get to learn and hear from the other CIOs. I think that's a good learning platform, and it's an exchange of ideas. I think, like I said, we might start looking at blockchain for ideas through CIO News, and we'll be able to create something which is really of high value, and being able to quickly let CIOs know what is coming, what is running, what's creating value for other organizations, idea sharing. I think it's been a great experience, and I'm happy to be part of this journey, and we'll be more than happy to jump in any other time that you would need me to come and join as in sharing my views and learning from others.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Manoj. Thank you so much for taking out time. and participating today. It was a pleasure to host you. Thank you so much once again.
Thanks, Khushbu. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. Thanks.
Awesome.